Hey everybody, I'm Lisa Campion,
Hi, and I'm Jane Bear.
and we're so excited to really announce that we are starting this Quantum Mystic Mystery School. We've been talking about doing it for a while, and here we are launching it. It's happening, and we really wanted to invite you and to tell you a little bit more about it. And I thought maybe a good place to start was like we talk about being an initiate in a mystery school, and I was wondering, Jane, if you had thoughts you wanted to share on like, what does that mean? What's an initiate in a mystery school?
Yeah, I think it's a great starting point knowing that historically in mystery schools, you start with the initiate, somebody who really, obviously, it means to begin a process or to start something, but um, it's like the beginning of your own personal transformation, your own personal metamorphosis on a spiritual journey, and often it refers to it like an esoteric in an esoteric way. And and I think it's sort of been handed down. It's this knowledge that gets handed down to the initiate, this wisdom. Um, and there's a readiness to the initiate.
Yeah, that's such a great explanation. And for me, I felt it like a calling, really, like a calling in my soul, a calling in my heart that was sort of hard to put into words. What I was like a longing almost
Yeah.
for for like a belonging to a group of people, to a knowing that there's like more, more
Yeah.
to the life that I was living. And like I had a great life, like don't get me wrong. And this happened to me, I don't know, like 16 years ago when I started 17 years ago, and and then I worked as a teacher in a mystery school for 15 years after that. And that I was just happy with my life, but I knew there was something I was missing. There was sort of a depth, a richness, a deep, like a mystical thing, like that wanting a closer relationship with divine source,
Yeah.
that with my own soul and with divine source, and that the ordinary everyday world started looking a little flat, kind of a bit bored, honestly,
Yeah.
with my day-to-day life. And I knew there was something more, and I felt that longing for
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good personal anecdote because I've since I was really young, I had that longing and I didn't even know, since I was a child. And I really didn't know what it was until much later, reading books, reading more books, trying to find, having conversations with people, trying to find teachers who could just
right.
explain what it was that I was longing for. And it really was that connection to source, that divine connection to ourselves, to really know ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so I think, like, for if you're thinking about this, joining us in the mystery school, that would be a really good question to ask yourself. Are you searching for something? Are you feeling that there's more, but you don't quite know how to get it? Are you longing for that connection, tribe, a group of other seekers? Um, and maybe you're experiencing something like a real increase in your intuition, a real increase in your psychic abilities, sort of a spiritual and psychic opening that so many of us are going through right now. And yet, what do we do with that if we don't have a container for it? We can just sort of feel like we're flapping around in the breeze, kind of with nowhere to go. And the school provides a structure, a process, a group, teachers, mentors, a process that and that is sort of what a mystery school has historically been, is a little bit more structured approach to this spiritual opening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people who I speak with who maybe aren't surrounded by other spiritual people and they're going through whether it's their family or their friends and suddenly they have some sort of awakening or because it's happening. The time is now. And so I think it is that question, or maybe there's a lingering, wonder or inspiration, or like we said, longing, an inner calling. or even just like a sudden resonance of needing something, wanting more for your own conscious growth, and spiritual development and self-development. And I think
Perfect.
that this is a place that I think we both really feel strongly is needed and are excited about.
Yeah. So if you want to find out more, just click on the link below, and you'll get more details on what the program involves, and you'll be able to hop on a call with one of us to find out whether the program is really right for you. Hope you join us there. Hope to see you there. We're saving a spot for you, and we can't wait to see you show up in our beautiful tribe and begin this adventure with us.
Absolutely. Look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, Kelly, that's the end of the email. And now let's I'm gonna pause the recording again for a minute. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Quantum Mystic podcast. I'm so glad that you're back here, and we have such a cool topic today. And I just got this question. You know how sometimes like something pops up over and over again, and it's time to talk about it. But I got this question like, I don't know, 5 times in the past week about what is a Kundalini awakening experience? How do you know it's happening to you, and what do you do about it? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, great question. And I love that that it's been a theme this week for you.
Yeah.
That is very telling of the time that we're in, and that there's people who are experiencing it more and more. I have a handful of people that I've met and talked to, and I have to say I personally haven't had a spontaneous Kundalini rising, which I think I imagine people are coming to you and
Yeah.
are having.
Yeah, absolutely. It has happened to me a couple of times in my life. And um, two or three of the times it was really fun and pleasant, and one of the times it was terrifying and
Yeah.
really scary. That was happened when I was really young. But I think we should start sort of by talking about what it is, like defining it, and the way that the definition that I know, and I'd love to hear your take on it too, is that we have this, and sometimes it's spontaneous, like you said, it just happens out of nowhere. Sometimes it happens because we train it, like we've been working on it to happen.
That's right.
And it's like a rush of energy that arises, like life force energy that comes up from your spine, and it's sort of symbolized by the snake, the cobra.
Mm.
And it rushes up our spine. It can kind of hit all the chakras on the way up and lands in your pineal gland, and you have and if you're lucky, you have an ecstatic experience. Like
Yeah.
it's you go kind of into a state of ecstasy. You can go really out of your body. You can achieve like states of ecstatic joy, bliss, union with God, divine source. And sometimes it goes wrong. And when we have this arising, if it hits like massive blocks in your chakras, like if you have a chakra that's like really like no energy is moving past that chakra, then the Kundalini energy is like gets disrupted. The flow of that life force energy gets disrupted, and then we can have like physical pain. It's sort of like a bad trip instead of a good trip. You can have like a mental health breakdown, an
Yeah.
emotional breakdown. You can have what's called Kundalini psychosis, which is
Yeah.
like, like really like a break from reality. If it hits a lot of unprocessed trauma. And I don't know, that's what I understand. What do you understand about it?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Excuse me. It's this yogic philosophy, and it's more than a philosophy because people are actually experiencing it, but it describes that like the Kundalini energy in the body that you were saying is like this dormant serpent lying that is at the base of the spine. It's always there. And it's like the Kundalini energy when it rises is it's that energy that becomes awakened, and it does go I am like, my understanding is it goes up through the chakras, and that's part of the awakening of the energy body. And it's very primal energy. It's the Shakti energy, right?
Yes, life force energy.
Um, it's the life force energy. And as it goes up to the crown of the head, if you're so lucky, it is that feeling of spiritual enlightenment, which we have all sorts of philosophies about enlightenment now, heightened awareness, that mystical experience. But I do I agree, it can happen spontaneous and kind of random. I whether it's through plant medicine or DMT, I've heard, or otherwise it's like this slow process through meditation, through yoga, through through cultivating that energy. Um, so I think there's different ways to get there in a controlled and gradual manner, which I feel like is probably more beneficial
Yeah.
long term, right? Even
Yeah.
even breathing. I mean, you think about yoga coming to the West. I always think about the Beatles bringing yoga, like
God bless them.
breath
Ravi
work and
Shankar,
yoga to
Ravi
the West.
Shankar, Yogananda, and they were like, they brought it all. It was kind of cool.
And it was that breath work that they were doing, that they were trying to get the Kundalini energy flowing, and they would go into these places of ecstasy through just that breath work. And I
Mm.
mean, I just love that story. I think about, what it was in the 1960s of sometime.
Yeah.
Anyway, it can be premature, and maybe not. I mean, it's the soul's path. So I think that that's like the interesting thing.
So interesting. And I think you're right. Like sometimes it happens for when people do plant medicine, psychedelics. I think sometimes it happens if you do breath work, if you do Kundalini yoga, that's a
Yeah.
specific kind of yoga that's
Yep.
developed to awaken this Kundalini energy,
That's right.
and will do it very quickly,
Yep.
ready or not, and I think that a lot of times the spontaneous arisings that I've heard also can happen through sex. So
Yeah.
like really awaken sexuality, or we can have sexual experiences that awaken the Kundalini energy. That's what Tantra is all about. So Tantra is, meant to cultivate a Kundalini experience through practices. But I have a funny story to tell you about that. Is the person I learned the most about Kundalini was one of my friends. He was a dominatrix,
Yeah.
and she was a dominatrix and a really powerful energy worker. And
Mm.
she would do sort of her dominatrix work with people, and had to learn about Kundalini, became an energy worker and an expert in Kundalini, because what would happen is people's Kundalini would have these intense Kundalini experiences while they were with her. And she told me this story once about the first time it happened. She was like, "What the heck was that?" And it scared her, freaked her out, scared out the person she was working with, and then she realized, like, then she became an expert at it and could
Wow.
awaken people. And I think the other way that it awakens for people is sometimes in the presence of a guru, like
Yeah.
if you go old school guru, like if you're with somebody, and there are still people on the planet who have that um power, like Sai Baba could do it, Muktananda could do it, Yogananda, all these, and I had a bit of an experience myself with that when I was 10, and my hippie parents took me to meet Maharishi, the founder of Transcendental Meditation, and he gave me
Oh
Shakti
gosh.
when I was 10,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
and like I didn't have a Kundalini experience, but I think a lot of people have had, you know, really powerful. And I think that's what happened with the Beatles. They were working
Yeah.
with Maharishi,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
um, and so it can be like the touch of the guru. I've also had heard of people like you drop out of your life and you move to Thailand and you go to a yoga teacher training
Yeah.
and you're doing 8 hours of yoga, meditation, breath work, you become a vegetarian, like boom, and then it happened, that you're just priming the pump for that kind of experience. So um those are the ways that I've heard people.
Yeah.
And I think oddly, nature. So it
Yeah.
happened to one of my friends who went on a had sort of dropped out of life for a couple of months, and during the pandemic actually, and decided to hike the Appalachian Trail
Oh,
as
nice.
um as the thing that he was doing. And he was like breathing and living in nature and being solitary and meditating, and had this moment of like Kundalini, like on the top of a mountain. He got there
Mm.
and just had this like sort of the John Denver mountain God
Mountain
experience.
high.
Yeah, Rocky Mountain High, exactly. So I think there are lots of ways it can happen. Um, that are, some of them are beautiful, some of them are a little rough, but it's all interesting anyway.
Yeah, and I think that the spontaneous ones where you have prepped the body in a way that's like, you've gone to the ashram and you're living a clean life and your physical body is more prepared for that
Yeah,
sudden energy rising. It's the ones that are living a regular, and I'm just going to say Western lifestyle,
yeah,
right? And they do something like DMT, and it's so quick and so fast, and their physical body can't hold that
ready.
much energy. It's not ready for it.
Yeah,
It hasn't been prepped and primed. Their mental body doesn't have the capacity to hold the information even that just happened. And so that's kind of when you really look at it, it's like the nervous system shorts out. It's like
yeah,
it's too much energy all at once. And that's when I think people really do have, like you were saying, could have psychosis, or they could have it fries them for years.
mm-hmm.
And they don't know even what to do with it or what to call it, or
Right.
and that's when things go a little bit sideways.
Absolutely. Yep. And there can be like, you end up in the mental hospital, or you
Yeah.
end up, with a nervous breakdown or an emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
Um, and I've seen that happen a lot, especially with ayahuasca. Um,
Yes.
seems to be like a hard path. And
Yeah.
I think if you're prepped and it's properly facilitated, ayahuasca can help you blow through trauma
Yeah.
and integrate it, clear it up in a really beautiful way. But if it's not well facilitated or you're not prepped for it, it sort of blows open the doors of your trauma in in a way that you're not ready to deal with. And
Yeah.
I've done a lot of cleanup work on people who have gone to sort of backyard ayahuasca sessions and just gotten really jacked up in not a good way
Yeah.
uh, from that.
Exactly. Yeah. I think we've definitely met them. We've all probably all met them at this point because it's so popular.
Yeah,
And there's such a calling for this clearing out of our trauma and, you know, raising our own consciousness. So I think that there's less uh people aren't being as discerning as maybe uh they could be in the choices that they're making because everybody, especially again, I'm going to bring in the Western culture because when you look at um, even the culture in India where they're really in their physical body is so a part of their every single day, you know, they're
yeah,
squatting, they're physically using their body, they're practicing the asana. Not everybody, but you know what I mean.
yeah. They're not
And
sitting behind computers or sitting on their phone, or like we're pretty sedentary over here at this.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
everybody, but so many of us are.
So many of us. And so we're looking for that sort of a quicker avenue.
Yeah,
And the truth is, it takes time.
yeah. When
It's
you
the path.
bypass that time,
Yeah.
sometimes you pay the price.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think the symptoms of Kundalini rising? I think people feel heat, like a flash of energy. Um, Somebody described it to me once as like being electrocuted.
Uh,
Um, not as um or like a huge movement of energy up the spine, like a wave of energy up the spine. Sometimes there's kriyas, like you know, automatic motions that you're not doing on purpose, but your
uh,
body go through kind of movement, that's a bit out of your control.
yeah,
I think there can be like, states of ecstasy, joy, bliss, kind of like how you feel if you have like super, heart opening, mind blowing sex,
yeah,
like if we could feel the sort of the same thing, like that rush of energy up our spine, heart opening, mind opening. Um, Sometimes there's visions, sometimes there are spirit guides that are around. Um, and I think sometimes it's less pleasant. It can be like, you know, uncomfortable. Like that would
yeah,
be like nervous system fry that you talked about.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's when it's more scary, especially if you're in a place where it's cognitively just unknown. You don't really have any
Like what's happening.
knowledge of what's happening. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think back through my life, and I'm sure in reality, I've had Kundalini energy rising, and I've had plenty of, you know, little moments and even some big of just of that like where everything is clear and easy and like it feels as if I'm as close to the divine as like I've ever been. Um and I've had a spiritual practice since I was 9, so I think that I I'm not I wouldn't have those really abrupt feelings as maybe some people would because I've been committed to prepping my physical all my the bodies for so long. But yeah, when we're just even having this conversation, I'm like, wow, I should probably
Probably
give
have.
yeah,
Yeah.
probably have.
I just remember this other story somebody told me once of having a Kundalini experience in childbirth. And that also makes sense to me because all that
Yes.
stuff that's going on down there,
Yeah,
that kind of like, life force energy um, created a Kundalini experience in childbirth. She was having natural childbirth.
I have heard of that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Static childbirth. Right. Or,
Yeah. That bliss.
yep.
Uh-huh. Pretty cool.
So, like, what do we think that could we come up with like a prescription if you're going through this? Like, what do we do? And, my first piece of advice would be grounding work because I think that we're, constantly moving earthly energy up our chakra system and out and constantly moving it back down. So we're always having energy moving up and down in our spine all the time. That's just part of how our energy bodies work. And we're really meant to be lightning rods here, right? So that that energy can move freely through our energy field without getting bogged down in the blocks that we have there. So I would say like grounding practices, getting outside, being barefoot on the ground, another kind of like really strongly connecting that earth to the earth would be like one of the things that would be super helpful if those symptoms were overwhelming you. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think grounding really, we can't bypass the physical body. And I
Right.
think a lot of spirituality, people who are practicing,
Mm.
any sort of spiritual practice in raising their consciousness are very focused on getting out of their body into the crown, up to God, and we can't bypass, we can't do it without the physical body. I mean, we can't do it without all four bodies, but really in this example, it's bringing that energy back down into our physical body and not being scared of it. I think that's what's probably, I think a lot of people are like, and rightfully so, maybe can't hold that much energy. And so that's the grounding, like offer as much up to the earth as you need, and then you see how much you can really hold and feel in your own physical body. And I think that that's going to be with visualization, that's going to be with breath work, that's going to be with like allowing that energy to just actually like
Yeah.
feel it in your, you know, in your shoulders, do some movement, and that's where the asana, the practice of the yogic postures are really, that's what they're
Yeah,
designed for, right? We need those.
we do. Because they're designed to open up the energy centers, the
Yeah,
chakras and the chi nadis, the meridians to flow energy through. Like yoga was really designed to prep you for meditation,
that's right. Yep.
And we do it the opposite way in the West,
Yep.
and that's sort of, I think, to our detriment. But
Yeah.
and I would say like this would be a time when you really want to get help, especially if you have a lot of trauma. If what comes up is sort of your unprocessed trauma, then working with a healer or therapist who isn't gonna, you know, think that you're going crazy,
Yeah.
um, and is gonna give you real spiritual counsel,
Yep.
um, would be, really good. And I know there's a lot of healers and therapists who have the right training and vocabulary. But I think that would be a super important part of it. And then also the thing we always talk about, which would be to make sure you are doing a spiritual practice
Yeah.
to help you build your capacity to contain that energy. And
Yeah.
spiritual getting healing work, of course, we need to, have people work on us. Maybe you have to have a Reiki healer like clear your chakras, or, help you gain mastery and understanding of your own energy field. But ultimately, I think coming back to a regular meditation practice or breath practice or yoga practice um, creates a stronger container for that experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
really what happens is the energy is bigger than the container you have.
that's right.
And that flows through, like breaks the container.
That's right.
And that's a problem.
Yeah. That's that short circuiting. It is a problem. It's very uncomfortable. And even for people who are doing it gradually and want to um, sort of speed it up, like you still need to go at the rate of your nervous system at that capacity. Um, and, I think getting help is really important. And if you don't have help, um, doing the grounding practices and just the realization that you're, I think the key, it, that real like flipping the idea that you're not going crazy, you know.
Yeah.
I think that there's so many people who feel like um having big sensations in their body isn't right. Like there must be something wrong if there's this much going on in my body. And so and obviously it really affects more than just your body, but that's your feeling. You have so many feelings, so many sensations going on all at once. To just know that, like, to know that we're okay, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, it's such a good thing to talk about. And I hope that that if you're, for those of you that are listening, that gave you some information that might be helpful, some direction for you if you're having that, so you can really recognize if you are having a Kundalini experience or somebody who is, and give you some steps to be wise about cultivating an on purpose if that's your choice to do. And that would be like the slow way of having a spiritual practice you're doing for prepping the container. Um, and yeah, and some things to help you, some ideas to help you handle your symptoms if you are experiencing that. So, anything else you want to close with, Jane, on this topic?
Um, I think that, you know, there's probably things and experiences that we don't even know people are having,
Mm,
and that it all fits into the realm of quote unquote normal within the Kundalini. And I think, um, again, reaching out and asking for help, and then also really, if you are actively striving to reach a Kundalini experience, I think the key is to really work with your body, and um and to allow like Mother Earth to be your guide. I think it's really, as long as we have that connection and that support, I think you
yeah.
know, we can offload some of that energy if it's too much.
Right. And I go back to thinking about my friend who had his Appalachian Mountain High,
That's right.
experience, and how hard it was for him to kind of come back to reality, like he came out of the mountains and found it like really difficult to enter into society again. And he found people were really weird, and being in
Mm,
society was really weird. It was a life altering experience for him. And I
yeah.
think Kundalini experiences are like an initiation experience. They're
Yeah.
they're often we're not the same as we were when we before we had them. And he, I mean, got divorced, quit his job. He was like a pretty high flyer corporate type, had this big old, you know, software job, for a huge software company, and like left and like lives in the woods in Maine by him, like lives in and just had to like totally, there was no going back from that
Yeah.
experience to his old life. And I think he still spends a lot of this time outside, a lot of time alone, a lot of time in this ecstatic flow. He told me like when he's in nature by himself, he constantly feels this love, joy, connection to God. Like he's constantly there. And then it's as he's trying to relate to people and fit in as a human in society where he struggles, you know.
Yeah. Oh,
And I don't know, that's his journey. It doesn't have to be that way for you, but I my point on that was I don't think we're always the same as we were afterwards.
yep.
And there may be like, that might be also time to work with coaches or therapists or counselors to help integrate that
Yep.
experience. Integrating that can be quite a lengthy process. And same thing, like if you have psychedelic journeys, it's the integration that we do afterwards. I think that where we really need the support and we really benefit from taking the time to integrate those experiences.
Yeah, it's a really, really important part. Integration is key for
Big,
any experience that is outside our regular
any mystical
norm,
experience, right?
any mystical experience, any plant medicine.
Yeah.
And not something that's built into our culture. And so we need
Oh,
to seek it out, and we need to, you know, make that a priority. Um, and trust that I think our higher selves are, and our souls are so stoked that we're here on earth doing this work.
yeah.
And remembering that sort of that God consciousness. And we're here to do it in a physical body. We're here to do it in the physical, polarized world. So
Right. So,
can't, yeah. Yeah.
well,
Good
thank you.
topic.
Good topic. Good topic. And thank
Yeah.
you so much for tuning in to Quantum Mystic Podcasts. Um, Definitely you want to subscribe because we're going to keep bringing you really good conversations. And thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yep. Thank you. See y'all next time.